Perfect. So nice. What episode are we on right now? Because you had two
I
guests.
I think 12.
Episode 12?
Yeah.
I think it'll be
I
either
don't.
11 or 12 because we had Toby, your
Yeah.
first guest. That was, I would say, episode 9. And then you had Levi, right?
Yeah.
Or Levy. That's episode 10. So we might be on episode 11. Unless you had another guest. But I think it's episode 11.
It'd be episode 11 then. Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right,
Finally
so
back at it after like, what is it, 2 weeks?
2 weeks, I know. Like when I was in Toronto for like the first week, and then I tried to connect, but then you had like another guest at the same time, so I was like, okay, I have to wait a bit
Yeah.
more. But yeah,
It
finally,
happens.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
back. Good stuff.
Finally back and yeah. Um, that's just me just trying to think. I'm just,
No
yeah.
worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so this episode we're going to be talking about mainly influence. So we're going to look at influence in three categories mainly. So relationships, wealth slash health, and transformation. And yeah, then we'll be talking about like I guess one question that I kind of big question that came up in my mind was like the most influential people in human history. So
Yeah.
kind of get an idea of like you know how to how people in the past influenced communities, influenced society, or influenced the course of human history. You know, and then
Well, speaking
that's,
of that, we can just say
yeah,
like Marcus Aurelius is like a perfect example of that.
yeah, Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah. Um,
Did you
like here's a perfect example of how he influenced the youth and no, that's Socrates I'm thinking of. But Marcus, like meditations and those sort of books that
like
he's
is he a
written.
Greek stoic?
Yeah.
Nice.
But I'm
Yeah, a
just
lot
thinking
of
how
the
he's just influenced over time. So I'm just like, he's been a lot. He's died like so many thousand years ago, and yet he's still influencing everyone today. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, like a lot of the Greek philosophy. I remember when I was in grade 10, I had written a French literature provincial test, which I got like basically I was like the best in my class at it because my French at that time was like the best in the grade. And one of the paragraphs, and I still remember this because my teacher highlighted this. One of the questions they asked me is, if you went back in time, who in human history would you want to visit, right?
yeah,
And I answered Plato. And the reason being is because Plato had influenced a lot of the Western education, the Western mindset, philosophy that kind of has driven human civilization, human technology, even, because philosophy and science go hand in hand. And like, that was my answer. And I wrote it in French, obviously, because, like, you know, I'm just translating it from memory and also like but the teacher was amazed like because we were all learning, we're all going through the education system at that time, and like why not highlight it in that way? It's kind of like a meta way of looking at it, right? Because you're talking about education while also answering the question of you know who you want to
yeah,
meet. But then there's also big influencers in the past, like you know if you search this up on Google, the like the most influential man or figure or character in the past. Jesus was one of them. Muhammad was another one, and Isaac Newton. Those are the top three. Not in the same order, but like the top three were those. The ordering
yeah,
actually changes depending on who you ask, which is kind of surprising. So if you ask ChatGPT, the first thing it answers is, "Oh yeah, this answer will depend on human bias and politics and religion and all that. So we're gonna give you like the top three, and then the first thing that it ranks is Jesus, and then after is Isaac Newton, or no, sorry, after it was Muhammad, and then after it was Isaac Newton. But then if you look at a book that was written by Michael H. Hart in 1978, it's entitled basically the top 100, like top 100 most influential men in human history. And then the title goes like a ranking of the most influential persons in history. And he ranks Muhammad as the first, and then Isaac Newton as the second, and then Jesus. And his ranking was based on whose actions had basically changed the course of human history or had a biggest impact in human history. So then categorized Muhammad as like being more political, spiritual, and Isaac Newton as being more scientific, obviously, and then Jesus
Yeah.
was more spiritual. But I feel like Jesus had kind of both. He had the scientific and the spiritual, but people didn't know at that time what the scientific was because his miracles weren't the same. But that's based on records, you know, and
Yeah.
like yeah, we don't know. Like we're just like for now we're just
Speculating.
speculating exactly.
Because I thought like maybe Hitler or like even one of the like was it one of the people from like ancient Egypt or even like ancient Mesopotamia would have like some technically have the greatest influence over.
Yeah, like the Pharaoh had a big influence in Egypt, like with the pyramids. Like one of the
Yeah.
pharaohs, at least, because there were multiple pharaohs. I remember, like if you studied, but
I was
in
just
Mesopotamia,
because that's when those first civilizations started, really, something, and that would have the greatest influence because then it basically branches into one like sort of tribe, then it branches out to there. Because it's basically come up with the core concepts, core ideas for society, and then that's where all the other ideas branch.
yeah, exactly.
And then obviously like Hitler, pretty self-explanatory. World War Two, yeah, Greater Germany, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but Hitler is more towards the end of, or at least the most recent events, I
Yeah,
guess,
like,
relative to where we live, our present time, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, so one question I'd ask, you know, who in this time would you, or what, where would you feed your influence? What, like, where would you get your feed of influence from present time? Like, I'm asking you this question,
oh me.
so I'll answer it too.
Let me have a think because it comes from many different layers and many different like conscious layers of thought. Because I've sort of got like a system, so like what I think, or I've got like a scalability sort of thing as well. Like see the level of influence, what's the impact, what do they do. It's a it's a bit of a system.
Nice.
Yeah. If anything, what 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 area of life are we regarding, or is it just general, just life?
Um, I guess you can talk about it in business. You can talk about it in relationships, like how you view influence in relationships. Like it could be as simple as if you have a sibling or a friend, for relationships. In business, it could be like who you choose to network with, what kind of business, what kind of interest, what kind of market do you want to be,
Yeah.
gathering your influences from, but also influencing kind of, you know,
Hmm.
you see what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think who
Yeah.
would actually like.
Or at
Yeah,
least, okay, these are big questions that I'm asking, but like,
yeah. It's just
let's say that for now, just in life, like today.
I'd honestly say probably Jocko Willink would be one of them.
Interesting.
Is like the same sort of is like a very similar to David Goggins sort of mind, and it's just like they're very much they're similar, but they're also very different
Right.
because they're on the basically like what is it? You know what the Navy SEALs are like. It's just and also having to survive Hell Week, then like doing like pretty much impossible tasks for most humans who don't have a mind capable of actually, you know, like Hell Week is Hell Week. Yeah,
Yeah, Hell
it
Week
gets
is
the
hell
name.
week.
Yeah, it gets the name for a reason, and it's actually part of the reason why I wanted to join the army.
Yeah, I remember talking about this like first few episodes. It's pretty sick. Now, so actually, you're motivated to join the army because of that?
Yeah, because I my kind of thinking was, based on my mindset and also based on what I've done in my past, and
Yeah.
because I'm like, okay, look, I want to be was an Olympic athlete for like a very very difficult endurance sport.
Mm,
Um, I was thinking maybe that's going to be easier than what I think, but it's always, how it goes. It's always harder in reality than what it is in theory.
100%.
So I'm sort of just thinking. Plus, also, obviously, I also now fight, so I'm sort of like,
Mhm.
I'm I'm used to the pain and that sort of stuff. So it's like, imagine just chucking on a Hell Week just on top of that, and because obviously fights only last for about 10, 15 minutes, and then Hell Week is just a consistent war.
Yeah, like once you survive Hell Week, you'll realize like you can take it for every other week or every week sometimes. And then
Yeah,
then your tolerance level, basically you kind of you've achieved another pain tolerance level that you can bear, and you can take more load basically as a man, and then just do more things. I guess that's how CEOs like of multiple businesses can manage their time, and like still live, have a family, maintain relationships, that kind of thing. But it all comes down to, you know, positive influence, just kind of like the battles between like how you're influenced. You could be influenced in a way, or kind of someone or somewhere does something at a certain time. Could have been in the past or it could have been now. And then your mind is already kind of like lagging in time, or kind of like you can see like there's influence happening on that person's mind that kind of shifts their focus
yeah,
from the present at the certain task that they're doing to that point in time. And then you'll see that certain emotions start forming from that point of influence, you can say.
yeah.
And then and then the person isn't like 100% on the task, right? Because like yeah, I mean, this happens normally, I would say.
It
So
happens all the time.
yeah,
Everyone's like, you can see it in like town. Everyone's in their head. They're like, oh shit, I've got bills to pay. I've got kids to feed. I've got, they're
yeah,
just trying to just be like, okay, I've got to prepare for the future task, or
yeah,
I
but your
fucked up
mind is
once
like
in the
on
past.
exact, and your mind as a parent or as a leader, I guess, in that situation is you're not really on the present task. Your mind is like on 500 different things. It's either leading or lagging in time, and that kind of you're you're taking too much burden on you that you don't really need to, right? You're not in that state
Yeah,
of like tranquility. You're not in that state of like calm, composed. You're in that state of like agitation, or like you're not like stressed in the end. So it's kind of like managing points of influence, you know, within yourself, but also like externally. So like someone tells you something that you see is a negative influence, you should act in a positive way that will
yeah,
defend you from that. Or you said something that you realize was not of good influence or behavior, and then try to rectify it on the spot, to make it positive again. And yeah, I guess in terms of behavior, like how we behave as human beings, trying to make our like kind of elevate our mechanisms of speaking, of body language, of uh, thinking. there's a you can say there's also a behavior to it that comes from the influences or the points of influences that hit you, you know?
Like what they say, it's all based on perspective. Like what is it? The reason why millionaire have millionaire problems is because their perspective of money and then their own personal perspective of time is so much more altered compared to like the common man, or same thing for like fighters as well. Like you just see him just sitting there like most of the time, like when everyone's got, I'm just saying, like everyone's got like chaos going on, like I owe this, and then everyone, the ones who are more adept to the chaos of just like, okay, I've done this before, I can just solve it again.
Yeah.
Because, I'm just saying it just from what I've seen, what I've also heard, because like a lot of my Instagram is a lot of fighting and like also a lot of like millionaires and that sort of stuff. Basically, like okay, like the Hormozis and that sort of stuff. So it's sort of like that perspective of like these people don't value money as much. Why is that? Let's dig deeper and then let's find out why.
Yeah. Another
I'm
thing
just
with when you mentioned social media, like who you're following dictates, basically where you want your influence to come in. And the people who follow you are the people who want to be influenced or find some kind of benefit in being influenced by your content, what you post, or the image that you have, I guess, on social media, right?
yeah,
So that's another thing too, right? I guess social media kind of there's another app actually I realize it's called Influencity. It's a whole business on that, on like kind of like creating the character, the image, the profile that you're gonna take online that's going to influence or kind of like have a magnetic influence on the people that you want to bring in. Like for example, for your business or just like if you're trying to just spread in some knowledge or like you know educate that kind of thing, or you're trying to just just influence, just to have like good things to say to people, being positive and all that. But at the end of the day, like it's yeah, social. I feel like social media. It's been a while, but it has really made influence like a big thing. You know,
yeah,
and they
like
talk
a
about
new currency, like the currency of tomorrow.
exactly like influencers, like you know, content creators, uh, like online investors. I mean, it's all like it's more clear. You can say it's clearer than before. Before
Yeah,
they needed like what print, newspaper, media, other forms of media.
word of mouth, really.
Yeah, but now with like everything, us being more connected, on Earth, you can clearly see, and it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. Can be
Also,
good.
while we're on the topic of influence, who's influenced you the most out of your life besides obviously your father, or and you can't say like Muhammad.
Yeah, obviously, I guess. Well, my parents, right? You would say.
Yeah,
Let's see.
you can't say that. You can't say the Quran, Muhammad,
No,
or
the Quran. I can't. Well, it has to be a person. It can't be a book.
no,
But
but it's like Muhammad. It's like his right. It's yeah, not
yeah,
his
yeah,
writing.
for
You
sure.
understand what I'm trying to get at? Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like someone, I guess, in my life that I met that like influenced
Or
me a lot.
even that someone you've listened to a podcast of, or you know that sort of stuff.
Let's see. Let's see. Actually, one point in my life that I got hit really hard, like in terms of influence, I would say, is this guy named Richard Dawkins. So
I've heard that name before.
yeah, Richard Dawkins. He's a famous atheist. at that time, like, he was a really, like, they used to call him militant atheist, but he was like basically like always questioning religion, always, even sometimes like arguments against God, against religion. He had a whole book entitled The God Delusion that's like really deep into like how, you know, you can easily be brainwashed by like, oh yeah, I'm actually worshiping this God, and like, oh yeah, even if it's Allah, right? But because the time we're living in, we don't have the same definition or concept. Like, he's really challenging, like, okay, you're worshiping, you claim to be worshiping Allah, but he's challenging you as a human being. Like, are you really doing it right? You know, like, he's
Yeah,
going against your belief system, like your personal belief system, not the one that's already established, like we know from the Quran or from the Prophet, peace be upon him, but the one that you've learned in your life, you can say, or kind of like acquired, as you mature and stuff. So that book like put everything inside of me on a big question mark, like. And on top of that, the craziest thing is because I studied AI, and what AI does is initially uh, at the like the beginning stages of AI, it's actually based on belief systems, which is incredible. So
it
you
makes
can
so
see,
much sense though. That makes
yeah,
so much sense.
it does. So belief systems are, you can think of it as a network, and each point in the network is a credence. What I mean by credence is how much weight do I assign to credibility in a person or a thing or an idea, you know? So
Yeah,
it's like in AI we call these weights, like weights. So we give it a number, right? Depending
yeah,
on the application, right? It could be like AI for let's say I want to do AI for supply chain. Okay, well, what are we doing? Oh, we want to predict how much toilet paper we have to give out in the next 6 months. Okay, let's put have a network, and then in a network we'll have like nodes where each node, for example, could be how much weight we assign to uh, the amount of toilet paper we want to sell at a specific time, for example. So then we say like, okay, it's going to be like 2 million for October 7th, 2024 at a specific time, for example. And then the AI kind of like learns based on past data, how it's going to predict the next October 8th, kind of thing. But what
yeah,
it comes down to is the deep belief systems, which are networks with credences. And depending on how much credence I'll give you or give the concept or anything, the weight changes depending on like, uh, for example, they claim to do or say this, but the action doesn't result in what I thought, for example. And I'm talking personal belief systems. And some belief systems, like, you can completely shatter the whole like network and just start from scratch. But that can actually kill someone. Like, it, bro. For me, like, I went through suicidal thoughts doing that shit. It's like matter antimatter collision, but you're left with like
well, like one massive black hole.
or massive. Actually, it did reach a black hole because I was talking about black holes before I went into an episode, psychotic episode. I was literally talking about black holes. I was like, "Yo, guys, it's all a black hole. Like, there's no light." And then these guys were looking at me like, "Shit, man." But I'm just saying, like, it's crazy how AI started from that point, from deep belief systems, assigning credences, and that knowledge did not come from where you would study AI conventionally. Actually, it came from this other book that I read, which called The Big Picture, by another atheist called Sean Carroll. So he worked at Google for a bit, I think, famous philosopher, and he talked about this whole concept of poetic naturalism. So kind of describing reality in a poetic way. and like at different like description levels, right? For example, a
Yeah.
chemist can see reality, for example, in a way that okay, like he's always gonna be mixing or modify, not modifying, but like mixing different, ingredients or elements to try to create something new or find like different techniques to mass produce like a certain material, that kind of thing. A biologist would see it as like, for example, at a cellular level or that kind of thing. There's like a reductionist view on the world. There's a holistic view on the world. So there's different like ways you can describe the world. We call it poetic. He calls it poetic naturalism, which is like there's I can describe it to you in my poetic way, or in as a role poetic way,
Yeah.
nothing. And it could
Well,
be completely coherent and logical for that role, for that person, you know.
it makes a lot of sense though, because
Yeah,
life is really just one massive story, and it's just basically it's really just broken up into your own like perceptions, really.
yeah,
Like obviously you're an engineer. I deal with like I'm a broker. Like yeah, we both, have like two completely different perception of reality. You see it as like a trial and error. I see it as more so. I don't know how to describe it, but
hmm
yeah,
yeah. You see, like you still have to work on your description level. That's what Sean Carroll would tell you. He would say, like, for example, your belief systems aren't deep enough that you haven't achieved the description level for, as a broker, I see the world this way. Like you have to kind of articulate the way you see it, you know?
yeah. Then
So
again, I'm still in training, so I
exactly,
don't
you're
have a
still
full.
training, you're still trying to become that person. So that's you see, like, it's like just like anyone who's starting, trying to become a certain role or have a certain a position in society, they have to work on that description and, gather as much, knowledge, info, and apply, kind of thing. So, yeah, but these are like really, really high level concepts that only I understand today. But when I was going through the phases of reading those books, man, I told you, matter, antimatter. Like literally, like it felt like a dark force was on top of me, and I was just going through dark days at those times, really dark days. Like everything was just constricted. It feels like you're being choked, right? And on top of
Yeah,
that, COVID happened, so like that was
it
like
was even more so. Yeah,
global choke season. So like, but yeah, it's incredible how you can actually manage to develop AI from that perspective, from belief system.
but
I'm
wouldn't
not
it be
gonna go
also
too
mixed
much,
between
but
belief systems, patterns, and other knowledge of the users?
well, belief system is like I would say the level zero of it, and then from there you start testing them with like patterns internally, and then if those work internally, okay, try to see them how they work externally. So testing them in reality, building theories, building like finding like axioms, finding certain laws, defining things, and then from there you build something crazy like in engineering. You build something unique.
You sort of built like a similar human mind sort of thing, but
Yeah,
it's not on that. Yeah, it's similar, but it's not as it's complex, but it's how complex the brain is compared to like
yeah, it's like
they're both very complex.
Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the guy who built ChatGPT.
Oh
He
yeah,
said to achieve like they call it a CGI, Central General Intelligence, or AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, which is almost the same as a human. You'd have to go further than, you know. For me, it's like deep belief systems is like one of the basic ways of looking at AI, like super super basic. But he's talking about it more in a sense of like how much resource, how much data do we need? How much like how much money is it going to take, to do these things?
I
How
reckon at least
efficient
$100 billion.
yeah, and how efficient do we have to be, as human beings to kind of manipulate, all these materials to create these AI chips that are really efficient? Like how can we push that edge, that front? Thing with AI too is that it takes a lot of resources. It burns a lot of fuel to kind of like to to train like Chat GPT, bro. You need a lot of GPUs, a lot of heat, a lot of energy. That's the
Yeah.
pro and con, but it is what it is. Like that's where we've come to.
Or we're literally just consuming fuel between literally the crypto market and just AI. We're just consuming it like no tomorrow.
Yeah, it's all based on what the network's cryptography, GPUs. AI is different though. AI uses GPUs to train the networks, whereas crypto uses GPUs to solve cryptographic algorithms, so to secure transactions
Yeah.
and be decentralized. Obviously, you have different nodes. Yeah,
It's just two different beasts entirely, really.
two different bases, but it's all like
Like,
similar, right?
yeah.
It's really similar because why GPUs? Well, you can train a whole AI using one, or you can train using many, right? And in DeFi, decentralized like financial like systems, person who has like a GPU server with can be like a node in the network of the market of that coin, or so it's all of it is kind of graph based, you can see, because an AI is
Yeah.
also a graph, right? An AI is a graph. It's a network with multiple nodes and edges, but in DeFi it's also a graph of multiple cryptographic solvers. So you can see like everything's kind of like graph based in a way. So it's like these kind of like, you can say, description levels that you see like as an engineer are really interesting, and kind of finding the tough part is finding the right description that works and makes something happen. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I can talk to you about like it being these analogies and stuff, but if I can't find like an exploit, I don't like using that word, but it is what it is. You won't make something new out of it, or you won't build on top of it that's gonna actually prove something better,
Yeah.
But yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm. How much
I
are
reckon.
we? 43?
I,
Okay.
I reckon we should go into like the crypto and like more of the chat G and more like the AI base for like another episode
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
because
could
we can
for
go
sure.
into like deeper and deeper layers
Let
to
me
it, and
write.
we're like,
So AI chat, I can call LLMs like language learning models. So
yeah,
basically, in the future, like we're predicting that humans don't even need to code; they can just code using language, and using their language, they can create things.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Like
because
seriously, like
LLMs are language learning models. They learn languages. The LLMs, the the whole concept of it. So I don't need to learn Python or C++. plus plus. I just need to know how to exquisite like succinctly communicate what I want in my app, and
yeah,
what language I want to use like to code it in, and that's it. Like I could just literally be as good of an articulate like speaker to I could be one like to be the best, I guess, software architect. All I have to do is be the best, most articulate in kind of uh, describing my architecture in any language. It could be English. It could be like, yeah, any language. Yeah.
I don't even think we're even that close with that. With AI at the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't even think that was even a possibility. I just thought it would just have to stick to their own language, and then we'd have to like develop a greater system from there before we'd even be capable of doing that.
no, it's already doing that, like, but it's doing like snippets of it. You know,
Holy
one thing
shit!
I just want to end off the episode because like we went a bit on a tangent, but I guess for now, like we can say like concluding with all that we talked about, especially the end. You know, I guess influence is really important. You know, it's something that we have to always keep in mind. Setting trends, like predicting the future, it all comes down to influence. You know, like especially the time we're living in, social media, having so many influencers, people trying to become influencers, trying to become popular, trying to become big. Like we literally live in a world of influence now. Like there's no, if you're not, if
No
that
way out of it.
isn't in your mind or you're not conscious of it when you go out of the house as a man, like yeah, you're gonna be taking hits.
And that's how the world goes because yeah, everyone's out to get what you want.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to know how to give, good stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Take
and
it.
think
I guess that's it for today. We'll see you guys
peace.
next episode.